This is Colby Yerksha with speech number 2. This is on the importance of volunteer firefighters and why you should become one. Why you should volunteer? It's quite simple. It helps the community quite a bit. As you know or may not know, obviously you need firefighters and you need people to help put out fires and for ambulance calls and EMTs. And in Pennsylvania, it's fairly common knowledge. Pennsylvania is the most volunteer-oriented state out of all 50 states. We have more volunteer firefighters and departments per capita than any other state. I don't know what the next closest state would be, but we're the #1 volunteer state. It also helps people personally. In my case, before I was a volunteer firefighter, I didn't do much with my life. I would play video games and be that kid who would say they had sex with your mother, and that kid that everyone hates when they do play Xbox or PlayStation 4 because all they do is badmouth people and they have nothing good to say and they don't help people play the game. And that used to be me before I became a volunteer firefighter, and now that I do that, I'm a much more mature person. I'm a much better off person personally. It gave me confidence to step outside of the box and my boundaries in life and do things that I wouldn't normally do. Second off, volunteers are extremely important, specifically in Pennsylvania because we are the largest volunteer state. In the 1970s, there were roughly 300,000 volunteers across the United States in terms of firefighters and EMTs, according to Ed Mann, who was the former Pennsylvania Fire Commissioner. Now there's roughly an estimated 50,000 of them spread out through all of those departments. And it hits home especially for me because my department just 3 years ago used to be able to get 3 ambulances out the door without having to pay anyone. And now we have 2 paid people on every day, and we can't get a second ambulance out the door should the need arise for a volunteer crew. It's also important that there are volunteers because it's common knowledge in the fire service that the tax system in Pennsylvania cannot support paid departments outside of cities where there's specific fire taxes. There are fire taxes that fire departments can implement, but that's only if they want to get a new truck or they want new gear. It's not something that they can implement all the time and keep it like that and then just use that to pay people. So they would have to redo the entire tax system for paid people, thusly meaning your taxes would go up and more than likely your fire protection would drop because they would consolidate departments. Third, if you're wondering how to volunteer, go to any person like myself, as scary as I am, or any other volunteer firefighter or EMT or even volunteer paramedic. There are those out there. And they can get you an application to the department. They can tell you the ins and outs of what to do. They can tell you when the meetings are to come and talk to them. And then you can apply and hopefully get accepted. We're always accepting people. And if you're wondering about training, for example, this is my CPR Pro book. Yes, it's backwards because my phone is recording backwards. But this is just an example of the training that is specific for volunteer firefighters and EMTs versus regular CPR that the American Red Cross does. It's a lot more in-depth. You learn a lot more. Also in this article, pardon me, but later on in the article, it describes that an entry-level firefighter spends $400 on training and $3,000 on gear. Luckily, the department pays for both the training and the gear. So if money's an issue, my department specifically, I'm on the board of directors, is more than willing to pay for training as long as you agree to go through the training and learn the ins and the outs and do the work and put forth the effort. We will be more than willing to pay for your training.